Hey, I'm Tins.
I'm Nakis.
And you are listening to Nintendo. We are a retro podcast focused on playing and rating old Nintendo games. Nakis, you doing all right today, man?
I'm swell, buddy.
Swell.
I'm excited for this second episode.
Yeah.
Really digging what we got going on here, and I hope our listeners feel the same. So.
Sure. Yeah. I feel the exact same way. Before we get started, normally I would jump into the question of the week, which we'll get to that. I want to talk about a couple things, or at least one thing. I want to address something, and I wouldn't feel right going forward without kind of talking about how this podcast came to be.
Yeah.
Where we got the idea. So, Nintendo Heads started because I was inspired by a different podcast.
Right.
It's called New Game Plus, NGP for short. They've kind of perfected this, I guess, genre of podcasting.
Right.
I've really dove into just being a hardcore gamer in the past year or so, and I just want to gush and kind of just take in everything gaming. And I played Super Metroid, and I think that was the first episode of theirs I listened to.
Was that their first ever episode?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
It was like I just found
as you were playing,
I just was so
Super
obsessed
Metroid?
with that game
Yeah.
that I just wanted to, like, after I beat it, I wanted to keep thinking about it and talking about it or whatever. So I found that, and turns out, like, I started listening to more of their episodes. I don't know really how, I just started listening to all their episodes.
I was gonna say,
go ahead.
How did you find them? Like, how did you?
I just on Spotify. Just
okay. Just seeing if there was.
I think I just typed in Super Metroid, whatever. I want to try to be cogent here. So yeah, New Game Plus. Check those guys out. Of course, after you check us out, they are some really good dudes. I don't obviously know them personally, but it's a good community. They've got a whole thing going. So yeah, thank you guys. If this by some slim chance that this reaches your ears, I hope. You would kind of take this as an honor. This would not exist without you guys. So thank you. And yeah. So with that being said, let's get into the question of the week.
Okay.
Which is, Nakis, do you have a nickname and how did you get it?
Well, I clearly do.
Clearly, Nakis is not this man's actual first name.
Yeah. So you know what? I'm going to tell you guys a story about. People always ask me, how did you get the name Nakis? And, I would call myself pretty comedic at times. I've come up with this false thing that I tell people where I say I was at a bar one time, and so I guess somebody got into a altercation with me or whatever, and I said, I'm about to knock this mother out. And so now everyone calls me Nakis. But no, the real
way he got it.
The real story is, in 8th grade, there was a TV show on MTV called The Andy Milonakis Show. Apparently, I looked very similar to this kid, who was actually a 45-year-old man at the time. Or at least I think that was his age, whatever. Apparently, back in the day, I looked pretty spot on to him. And
you kind of did.
At first, my nickname was Milonakis.
Right. Yeah, it actually started as his
and then
last name.
Now I have probably more friends that don't even know my real name.
This man has like 4 names, by the way.
But Nakis is like the one that pretty much everyone knows.
Yeah.
And
like everyone, I think even his like family and his mom calls him Nakis, and his girlfriend. Yeah, I mean it's this man he's known as Nakis.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's because Andy Milonakis show for sure.
So I've had people approach me and be like, "Is that Greek?" And I'm like, I have no idea. Like, I don't know where Andy Milonakis is from. I know he's from New York, but I don't know if he's of Greek descent or whatever.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But apparently there is a name that, like, even Zach Galifianakis. Yeah, it's like a
recurring name.
What do they call that? Like a root?
I don't know the
not
word.
A root word, but like a surname.
Yeah,
or whatever.
I know.
Like,
yeah, I wish I had the word for what we're trying to say. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Apparently, like back in the day, Nakis meant coming from money or wealth. But yeah, that's the story of Nakis. So Tins, do you have a nickname?
Nope. My name is Tins, and that's it. No, obviously, yeah. We're going by our nicknames on this podcast. Nakis has given his story, and now I'm going to give mine. So, Tins. Well, let me talk about. I've had a lot of nicknames growing up. Some of them I don't want to include just because they kind of pertain to my last name. I'll tell the funniest one I have. Just know that there's a long-running inside joke in my family. So when I was like 7 years old, my oldest sister, which she's at the time, she was introducing her boyfriend, fiance to our family. Again, I was like 7 years old, and we're all at home, and I introduced myself as Sally. I don't know why. I was just being goofy. I thought I was being funny. I said, I'm Sally, and that's Tabitha. And I was talking about my brother, Tyler. And man, it just stuck. It's something that a 7-year-old said, it just
Kids
stuck.
say the
And to
darndest
this
things.
day, it has kind of evolved. They call me Uncle Sally for the longest time. And now Dustin's really the only one that kind of keeps it alive. He calls me Sal or Salvador. So it's kind of evolved over time. Yeah, I've got so many nicknames, it's silly. So, how did I get the name Tins is a totally different thing. And in short, it's just a shortened way to say Jason, which is my name. That started because my stepbrother, so you kind of have to know us and how goofy my brothers and I were growing up. My older brother would be like, he'd say, Jatons! And then, so Jatons got shortened. Literally one day he just said, Tins! And I knew he was talking to me. It just like, I just knew. I'm like, and I kind of looked at him. I'm like, Tins now? We're just shortening it to that. And it just kind of stuck. And not everyone calls me Tins, but certain ones do. And it just feels like, it's a good nickname, I guess. So that's just kind of where that came from. Now, furthermore, my wife and I have all kinds of silly nicknames for each other, like an endless scroll or list, if you will. Not excluding the eponymous character for our game of the week, which is Hamtaro, Ham Unite. Yeah, my wife calls me Hamtaro at times. Don't ask questions. We're just goofy like that. So let's talk about this game, Hamtaro, Ham Unite. It's an adventure game. It's based on the anime of the same name, Hamtaro, obviously. Now, it was published by Nintendo. So, Hamtaro, Ham Unite, I don't know if we said, it came out on the Game Boy Color in Japan in 2001. It wouldn't see North America for another year and a half. It came out late in 2002. It is technically a sequel to a game that only released in Japan called Totoko Hamtaro Tomodachi Daisakusen Detsu.
Okay.
Which is wildly, vastly different than Hamtaro, Ham Unite. It came out, that game came out in 2000, also for the Game Boy Color. I don't know anything about that game. But our game of the week, Ham Unite, it's not only a sequel, but it also precedes Ham Heartbreak, which would come out in 2003 for the Game Boy Advance.
Right.
Ham Unite received generally positive reviews. In fact, it was the 7th highest selling Game Boy Color game in Japan, which is pretty impressive.
That's
pretty good.
Yeah.
So, now here's the thing. I read that on one source. I tried to find a list of highest selling Game Boy Color games. Just any list, whether it's in North America, just any list. It's hard. They're hard to find because the Game Boy Color games are kind of roped in with just Game Boy games.
Yeah, like I could see that. I could see that game getting a way higher review or more sold copies in Japan because they have the whole chibi, however you say, they're all about the cute.
All about anime and cutesy stuff.
Yeah.
I get it. It was actually produced by Shigeru Miyamoto himself, which I'm hoping if you're listening to this podcast, you would kind of know at least, maybe not know who that is, but at least have heard of that name, Miyamoto. He's the creator of many well-known Nintendo titles, Legend of Zelda, Mario, Donkey Kong, Star Fox, just to name a few. And yeah, he was a producer of this game, which should be a little bit telling of at least the charm that's in this game, which we're going to get to that. The last thing I want to say about this is it was the final game published by Nintendo for the Game Boy Color, which is kind of interesting, I think.
That's a cool little trivia piece. Yeah, I didn't
now,
know that.
I think that means maybe there was some other games that came out, but this was the last Nintendo published game. So, question for you, Nakis. Do you have any experience with Hamtaro, the anime, which I think you kind of said?
I do.
I think you touched on it last week.
Here's the funny part. And to this day, I still have a very small attention span when it comes to remembering anime or, anything of that nature. Back in the day, we actually had a little conversation earlier about me getting into Dragon Ball, and that's what stemmed me into anime in the first place, right? So, yes, I used to watch Hamtaro on, Toonami, when that was a thing for kids on Cartoon Network, like after-school programming or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I would watch Hamtaro, but I didn't pay attention to it. It wasn't something that stuck with me. It was just fun, and it was cutesy, and the theme song has been stuck in my head for the last 20 years of my life. But, I mean, aside from that, I couldn't tell you what the adventures are about,
right,
aside from playing this game and maybe associating that with what happens in the show. Yeah. But I do remember watching it. I can't tell you what it's about. I can't tell you anything about it.
I don't know anything about it either. I was going to watch some of it this week, or watch an episode or two. We have Crunchyroll. It's not on Crunchyroll, which is weird. So there's just really no way to, or wasn't an easy way to, I guess, access it.
I feel like it was a very short-lived show, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I could be totally wrong on that.
I remember seeing, remember the old channel guides where it would slowly kind of go up and level. I remember seeing that on Cartoon Network all the time. Of course, as a kid, I was not an anime kid. And especially something like that, it just wouldn't have. Yeah. I remember it being on the channel guide, and I remember thinking what the heck is Hamtaro? A show about hamsters? That's silly. That's crazy. But again, it's a whole cultural thing. It's an anime thing. It's which I feel very differently. Nowadays about anime and even that. The idea of that show. Yeah. I've never seen a single episode. I couldn't tell you how the intro goes, but my wife, which I've kind of touched on, she loves Hamtaro. She has seen every episode. She even had a VHS with an episode or some of the episode, or a season or whatever. She had a VHS of Hamtaro. She had stuffed animals of some of the characters from the show, like Hamtaro himself and Bijou, which I think is his girlfriend. I do know that much. Some of my Hamtaro lore knowledge, I've definitely kind of went to Allie.
I would say 95% of it.
Well, it's from this game and from what Allie has told me. So, yeah, she loves Hamtaro. She loves this game, and I recently bought her this game, and she beat it, and that's the reason I chose this game. And I'm actually, again, I'm just kind of wowed that it's the first game that it was in the pool of the first games that I would be choosing.
Yeah.
So let's get into the story, which there really isn't one, or at least much of one at all. The game starts off with his name's Boss. Which I think he is actually from the show as well. Mm-hmm. He's obviously the boss hamster, I guess. It literally just starts off with him. He's basically saying, "Hey, I'm busy. I need you to go round up our ham friends, or your ham. Go find the hams."
Which are your
and
friends.
that is literally it. It doesn't say. There's no context almost at all. It's just go find them, bring them back to the clubhouse. So that's it. You're tasked with going to round up your friends, and we'll kind of get into how we go about doing that. So, first of all, you name your character, which it's Hamtaro, but you can rename it. Did you rename your character?
I didn't.
Okay.
I mean, because I was following,
the lore and stuff. Normally, I wouldn't rename my character, but I was like, HamTinns. Why not?
That's fine.
Sometimes I will. I will do, like on Pokemon, I'll name my character Tins, or like Final Fantasy and games like that, I don't rename the characters. But certain ones where it's kind of a lot more lighthearted, not as serious game, I will rename them. But I was like, let's do HamTinns. That's kind of fitting.
Yeah.
So you're the main, I guess, hub, the hangout spot is the clubhouse. You go from the clubhouse to the overworld map, almost like an old Mario or Donkey Kong game.
Yeah.
You've got the map, and you can kind of select these different areas. Only one or two at first. And then as you progress, you unlock more areas. So let's talk about the chat command. So the whole theme of this game is you are going around learning ham chat phrases. And it's basically just kind of what you would probably think that is, just by the name of it. It's
like
hamster
lingo.
It's lingo. It's hamster slang.
They have their own dictionary that you're trying to complete in essence. And each time you meet a new friend, well, I'm not going to say each time, because there are some times where you encounter one and you don't learn a word, but most of the time you'll learn a word that you can then use to interact with other hams.
Yes.
Or other creatures, because
there's other stuff,
there's other
NPCs.
Not only do you use those to interact with characters, there are also like different digging, like holes and stuff. Like if you use dig, for instance, as one of the chat words, you dig in a spot, and then you might find a sunflower seed or a rock, which are inventory
essentially
items, that
currency
or
So we'll get to that. So these ham chats, we say chats, but so you got verbal greetings like ham ha, but they can also be actions like taku, which I think we mentioned, or the dig. So you're going around, you're interacting with NPCs and your environment.
Right.
You might see a patch of dirt, like you said. You dig in it, you find a sunflower seed, or there's even these caves which. They kind of threw me off. I would try to walk into them, but you go up to it, you hit dig. It's really not a cave. It's just a big hole in the cliffside or whatever. So, dig, and so you're going around, you're interacting. Now you've got your main four chat commands that are always there. You got hamha, taku, dig, and hif-hif, which is a sniff. And then there are contextual situations where, depending on what it is, you'll pull up your chat and there'll be a lot more added to that list. So it's kind of a game of you got to figure out how to, I guess, communicate with your NPCs, your ham friends, and you got to figure out what they want to hear or what chat command you're supposed to use.
So without distracting you off the topic or anything, I recently, like right before we started this, I did some digging on the actual ham dictionary. I'll give you a little bit of insight on that. There are, I might have lost count, but there are around 83 to 85 ham words in this game.
Is there that many?
Yes.
I knew there was a bunch.
There are
I knew there was like 50 at least.
Yeah, there are a lot. And that being said, this is another little piece of trivia, but in the anime, there were only 27. So this game has like four times the amount.
So the ham chat is in the anime.
The words are, yeah. It's not like, I don't think it's a dictionary like it is in the game, but there
some of the words from this game were
absolutely.
I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't even think about that. I don't know why I thought the ham chat was like, I guess, partial to this game for some reason.
No.
For some reason, which is kind of silly now to think about. But that's cool.
that's one thing that I do remember from the anime is like the silly little. I call it silly. I mean, as an 8-year-old kid, it was cute and funny, and
Sure.
Nowadays, I'm like, it's silly, but
I mean,
for what it's worth,
I think
yeah.
That's just what it's kind of going for. A couple other things I just want to, I guess, take note of in this game that maybe the fans of the anime, that if they were to play this game, I think they would appreciate. It actually has not just Boss from because I don't think all these ham friends that you're finding, I don't know if they're all from the show, but there are a few. There's Bijou and Oxnard, which I looked these characters up and they're just absolutely adorable. It's so funny how cute they are. And the other thing, okay, there was something else totally kind of unrelated to that I wanted to touch upon, and we sort of glossed over it. You can collect sunflower seeds as currency of some sort for
outfits,
which, and I will get more into that. I was bummed about that because you buy these outfits and I really don't know
how to equip them.
I don't know what they're for. You can equip it, but then
your character doesn't show.
It's like your character never actually, your sprite never changes like clothes or anything. Maybe in one of the mini games, I think I don't even think the clothes change in the mini games. I think you can like take pictures of it. Maybe they had the remember the Game Boy printer.
Yeah.
Maybe you could take pictures. And like
it was a missed opportunity. Just put it like that.
Which is one of my few gripes about this game is you can't dress your hamster up, or at least it kind of misleads you into thinking that you can.
Yeah,
which, So I'm not really sure. Maybe that was just for the Game Boy printer, which really. So my little sister had a Game Boy printer, and I would borrow it and use it. Or I remember, or maybe I don't know. She had like accessories for her Game Boy, and I would always steal them and use them for mine.
I had the camera. I never had the printer. But
okay, maybe it was the camera that I had. That's what it was. I didn't have the actual printer. I had the camera.
Yeah.
So I think that could have been used. Cool. Like if you had that, maybe that did make that more fun. You kind of look back on those memories. Other than that, I felt like the clothes were kind of just pointless. Therefore, I feel like the currency was a little bit pointless. Yeah. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself because that's kind of more for a later segment, but I guess I just wanted to touch on that. Nakis, going back to the ham chat words, do you have any favorites? Do you have any that like really were just so adorable or cute that you want to talk about? Or hey, bonus points. Maybe you don't have it. Bonus points for a favorite manner of acquiring the word, because there were different things. Like we said, that you would do interacting with the NPCs. They would give you a word.
I'll say this.
Touch on that for me.
Being 100% honest with the audience and you, which I feel like you already know this, I didn't get much playing time this week on this game. I have, I've looked up and I've watched some playthroughs. I know the gist of it. I did get probably 35, 40 minutes in, so I played the first couple little levels and whatnot.
You pretty much got a gist of the game.
Yeah.
If you play this game for almost any amount of time, you're going to get kind of the gist of it, for the most part.
So one of the words, I got a few written down here. So
give me at least two, maybe three if you feel
So my two favorite ones were Done Deal, which was to sell an item or whatever.
Crocodile Done Deal.
Yeah, Done Deal. Wit Tea means funny.
Okay, yeah.
And then
which is witty in and of itself.
Yeah. So, and then Lotsa is many, but my all-time favorite is Go Pee. Which is bathroom. Yes. It's not Go Pee as in like P-E-E. It's Go hyphen the letter P.
Yeah. I felt some of the words or some of the ham chat words were almost a little mischievous. I like Go Pee. You could pee on a sign in this game, dude. You could use it is what you think it is. It's Go Pee, and you are. The hamster will face away, so but it kind of does the animation of as if he's like peeing. So It's funny, but there was just the other ones like Coochie Q and for pretty. And I just thought that was funny, mischievous in a way. I had some good ones here. So there's Ham Solo, which is for obvious reasons that's a top pick for me. You know, that's just definitely. I don't know if they meant to do a Star Wars reference, but Ham Solo, or obviously when it was translated, I would say they probably had that in mind. Ham Solo, which means lonely, by the way. Cram. It's not really cute in nature, but it's clever because it means study. Cram, study. I just thought that was so funny. But my favorite one, maybe not the word itself, but it's Nopookie for dislike. But the way you get that word is so funny. There's a hamster on this ledge, and it's pretty high up. You know, you're on this ledge, and you have to tackle him off of the ledge. And as he's falling, he says, Nopookie. And it's so funny. So, of course, you're like learning the word, and you're like, what is this word? And it's dislike. And I genuinely laughed at that.
So I didn't have a particular word that and a memory of like acquiring it, but I was gonna say something along the lines of like in that first area there's a tree and you tackle it and a hamster falls out of it.
Similar
I'm like,
nature. I forgot about that one too.
Yeah, like I forget what the word is, but that would be my
similar. Yeah. I just thought it was funny because you're actually I'm like, wow, that's what a jerk move. Like, why am I tackling this hamster off the cliff? But it was kind of fun and funny to do. So yeah, Nopookie, dislike. Some of these Nakis, you said you looked at the list earlier. Some of these sounded like Pokemon names. I'll give you one. Delachew, which I think it means delicious, obviously. Delachew. Smidgey. And yeah, there was just a few that I just wanted to touch on that.
I'll say this for the listeners. Some of these words, actually make a lot of sense and are not so like far-fetched.
They're intuitive.
They're from the actual word, and then some of them are just like, okay.
It's just kind of like a mess of letters. Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of them are relevant to what the translation in Ham.
Like go pee. You go pee.
Yeah.
Or thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these guys, the chat it's pretty adorable. It's funny.
Fun.
It's charming.
It's fun.
Which is good because that's kind of like that's pretty much the main theme of the game. How'd you feel about the music?
Not terrible at all. I was going to touch on the music and the graphics in general. The graphics were very spot on, I guess is the word I'm looking for. They're very, like, it's just well put together. It feels like you're actually part of the land that they live in or whatever. Like, it's not like just generic backdrops and, things like that. Like, it's the environment, like, you feel like you're a hamster running around in
the Hamtaro world.
In the Hamtaro world, yeah.
I gotta agree with you. So, in my notes,
and you asked me about music, but I didn't.
No, it's okay.
Music was great.
The music, I liked it a lot. I almost loved it. So it wasn't quite top notch, but it was good and it was catchy. It was very playful and cheerful, and I think it really kind of captured the very tone of the game. It
complements the whole thing.
Complements the absolute lightheartedness of the game. Yeah, and it's if I had to compare it to something, I would almost compare it to like the Mario Land games. Maybe
I could see that.
Yeah, it just almost. Not circusy, but just kind of goofy, and the graphics. Yeah, I thought they were great. I thought they were great for the Game Boy Color.
They were awesome.
Really. There's not much better that you. I mean, maybe I need more time with the Game Boy Color, but
I think the graphics.
You could tell what everything. I mean, they were good. You could tell what things were. Just a couple things that stood out to me. There was like some vines that you would climb on, and. There was a broom that you would kind of make your way up. I mean, and there was like some buildings. You would go to an area, like you climb up these vines, and then you've got this almost like where it's mostly top down. Now you climb up this vine. And it's almost like a
side scroll,
like not side scroll, but like 3D view. If that makes, I don't know how to explain it, but you can see the house in the background. I thought it looked great. Really, I think for the Game Boy Color, they couldn't have done much better.
Right.
So those are some of the things I liked about the game. What did you not like about the game, August, or what would you change about the game?
So,
or add or take away.
Okay. It's not a game where you are at risk of, game over. Ever.
Yeah.
It's a game where
you can't mess up.
You can't mess up. You can't die. You can't make a wrong decision. It's pretty much play and exhaust all your options until you get the right answer.
Yeah.
Which it's not even that complicated. But what I would change, I mean, bro, I don't know because I feel like the game does what it's supposed to do.
It's set out to do.
It captures the audience that it was set out to capture, and I mean, there's a reason that Allie still loves that game.
Yeah.
Being a fan of the show, I'll say this: it's a very, very, very simplistic game, but it does it in a way that wouldn't be considered shovelware in a sense. It wouldn't be considered a game, especially back in the day. If you were a fan, you would grab this game. Nowadays, it very well could be considered a shovelware game.
Yeah, we had talked about this off air. We say that in the nicest way. What Nakis, I think, is saying is today, people who might be looking for an old game to play, some people might pass this off or look at this and be like, "Oh, that's got to be some shovelware, garbage or whatever." But it's absolutely not.
It's not.
It's not the greatest game ever by any means, but it's definitely not shovelware. It's so much more than that. There was love and charm put into this game. To me, shovelware is a game that you pick up and in minutes or even seconds, you're just like,
yeah,
or even before you start it, well, maybe that's not a good, within almost no time at all, you're like, yeah, this is crap. I literally don't want to play this. If it immediately turns you off, but this game didn't do that at all. As a matter of fact, I found myself enjoying it more and more because I did scoff at this game a little bit in the back of my head. I didn't outright just tell my wife this, but I didn't go into this thinking I was really going to like it.
Right.
Even the first day, I was like, Allie, I don't know if this game's for me, and she, of course, gave me a hard time for that. But the more I played it, I appreciated it at the very least. And I've even found myself thinking about it. I'll say this: if I didn't have such a insane backlog, I could see myself going back and maybe I still will. If I don't have a game system on me, or if I'm bored sitting around waiting on something, I might pull this back because I played this on my phone.
So it is a.
So yeah.
When I said shovelware, like he was saying, I mean it in the sense of on first glance, someone picking it up would assume that
a lot of people
there
would pass
wouldn't.
It off as that.
Yeah, they wouldn't. A lot of people wouldn't even pick this game up,
right?
Just because they look at it and they assume that it's a game that's not for them. I even enjoyed it. It's not a game that I would personally choose if I had an option, but did I have fun playing it? Absolutely. Would I play it again? Potentially.
Yeah, I agree. I had fun playing it. It's almost become nostalgic immediately for me, in the weirdest way that I can't quite put my finger on. I think I am biased because this game is special to my wife, but there's something. It's so relaxing, and it's not a game that you're looking for a challenge at all. This is a game that I just want to use my brain for a minute, and I just want to relax and not have any stress. You got to have some games like that.
Yeah, right.
I honestly don't know if I've ever played a more relaxing game where just absolutely cannot lose.
It's a very very chill collectathon.
It's listed as an adventure game, which we actually said at the beginning of the episode. But yeah, it's an adventure game. But I mean, it could also be like a point and click. It's like a point and click adventure. Maybe even a little bit of puzzle. In there, yeah, puzzle elements. But So some things, yeah. If I had to change anything, here's what I would change. They sort of kind of dropped the ball on the clothes and the currency. Like
I didn't
I
make
just
it
didn't
as
have,
far as you did, so I don't really
I
have.
had no incentive to get any more seeds, which is a shame because you could actually farm seeds. You could dig up five or we'll say 3 seeds, leave the area, come back and immediately dig those same 3 seeds up. You could just farm.
I did notice that.
Seeds like crazy, but after I bought like my first 2 or 3 items, anytime I would go into an area and find that shop, I would just immediately leave. I'm like, I don't even want to buy anything. Like, there would just needs to be a little more incentive there. And I think if they would let you wear the clothes, which I get it, it's probably hardware limitations, the Game Boy Color, it's probably hard to program or code a bunch of different clothing items in there, but I think they could have done something more with it. Or at least, they could have done something more with that. The only other thing, I think, and this would really bump it from a pretty okay game to a good game, it needs more mini games. And I think there's like 1 or 2. There's like this Ham Bowling. I actually never got that far. I saw it because I did. Well, I played like half of the game, and then I watched a speed run of the rest of the game. And yeah, I did see the bowling. It looked pretty cool. I just maybe add some mini games in there, and this could have really been. It would have bumped it up. We'll say that it would have taken it up at least a notch or 2. So, any final thoughts on this game, Nakis? I think we've covered pretty much. I'll say this. So I said I watched the speed run. At the end of the game, you get everyone back, and they do a big what's called a ham jam, and they all basically just get together and dance and live and be cheery, and they go on about their merry way. So yeah, it's pretty daggone adorable.
My final thoughts, like I said, actually you brought this up. It did trigger some form of nostalgia for me. It brought me back, and maybe I just love Game Boy games, the whole genre of the handheld Nintendo library. Is so just that's what makes me feel at home in a sense. You know what I mean? Like there's a
comforting.
There's a comfort to playing the early on Nintendo handheld systems, and that this was one of those games where you don't have to put a million hours into it. You can pick it up and play it for 5 minutes and still get the same enjoyment as playing the whole game. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. It took me back to that nostalgic wave of me playing games as a kid,
right?
And it triggered the whole Toonami thing. I've been thinking more and more about the early anime that I used to watch, and maybe wanting to go back and revisit that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I really did enjoy the game for what it was worth.
Yeah,
so.
I agree. There is something about those old Game Boy Color games, and I agree. It's nostalgic. It even reminds me of something about the text in those old Game Boy games. It kind of reminded me of Pokemon a little bit. There's something nostalgic about that old Game Boy.
The white bubble with the I get it.
It was just it was nostalgic in a way that it's hard to explain. Let's do it this way. So let's kind of establish what we mean when we say what would I rate this game in 2002? I'm trying to look at this as not a personal thing, like, if back then I was this age, which is okay to do. That's also fun to, speculate. Because I'll say this, I would have given this game like a 2.
Right.
With who I was in 2002, I don't think I would have cared about this game. Maybe I'll say this, I would have not even looked in its direction. Now, maybe I would have enjoyed it to an extent if I just so happened to have it in my collection, or if I got that far to get to where I played it, I maybe would have appreciated it a little bit. But I don't know. But I'm trying to not look at it that way. I'm trying to look at like a general audience, like, you know, all ages, you know, general gamers. Back then, I'll say this, man. I would have given it a 6.8. And for today's time, I want to give it a 6.8.
Okay.
This was hard to do. This was hard to come up with. Now, it's a pretty strong 6.8, and it's got charm. It's there. It's so, the animations and the graphics, it's so daggone adorable. You just kind of can't help love it a little bit. And the music, you know, we touched on that. It fits so well. It sets the super lightheartedness tone of the game, and I enjoyed it. And yeah, I mean, all that combined, I mean, I would almost say it's a 7 for O2 and maybe a 6.8 now, just because, you know, audiences now, we need action, and, you know, it's the game, no pun intended, has changed when it comes to video games. So yeah, what do you think? What ratings would you give it?
So initial 2002 review rating, I would say a 5.8. And I'm saying this because, you know, back in the day, Hamtaro was relevant. Nowadays, nobody knows what that is. You know, it didn't have a strong. Today it doesn't have.
Allie's going to listen to this, and
Allie's going to hate.
Whole new one.
Allie's going to hate.
Dude, she was talking. There's a whole community apparently that's like still very.
And I believe that. I do believe that, and that's where. Okay, I'll give it a 6 for back then. That being said, it was what a lot of people would maybe consider a niche thing, and today even more so.
Even more so, yeah.
So you know, there's people out there.
So 6 for O2? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I would give it a 6 for O2. Nowadays, I'd give it like a 4.
A 4. Okay.
And I mean that in the best possible way. Like I said, I would go back and maybe replay this game on a road trip or something, because you can beat it in 2 or 3 hours. Mm-hmm. I have a connection with the series as a whole, as in, like, I used to watch it, so I know a little bit about it. But for somebody, if you were to give this game to an 8-year-old kid today, they're going to be like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
You know, there are maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I did enjoy it. I do want to give it credit for being a beautiful little cutesy game. Like it does what it's intended to do. But as far as like rating on a scale of,
by the way, I got to cut you off here now. We are rating these games 1 through 10, 10 being the best. We should definitely clarify, because not everyone might have caught on to that. But yes, we are rating these games, 1 being the absolute worst it could be, 10 being the best. So I just wanted to get that across. So my bad.
No, you're good.
I just felt like our listeners needed to hear
nowadays, that. I'm speaking as an audience and not a person that's played this game. Do I think it would be received well today? I think less so than in 2002 when the game was relevant. When the show was relevant.
Was more relevant.
Yeah, like when the audience was there for it.
Yeah, I agree. Well, to an extent. I see where you're coming from, because if we're being honest, and I gave it quite a bit better score because of the charm, the graphics, the music. It just, maybe I'm a little biased because of my wife's attachment to this, but I just feel like there's some charm here. But I get it, because again, we're looking for action. We're looking for more things to do. Just more the way our brains work in 2024, the way the gamers see games and what they want from games, most people just are not going. It's not going to be for everybody, let alone.
I'm sure a lot of the games that we're going to play are not going to be. They're going to be a lot of niche titles.
Yes,
a lot of titles that nobody's ever
great games
heard.
and some mid games and some bad games, and so. But I liked this game for what it was trying to do, and
me giving it a low rating on here, I would still recommend that you go and play this game. It does hold up well in the aspect of cute anime style.
If that's your thing, then go for it. Like, if you like anime or just relaxing, if you like Animal Crossing or even Pokemon or, give me another one.
Anything chibi.
Well, not even that, just relaxing. I mean, it's not even it's the anime aspect too, but if you want something easy and charming and there is a little bit of fun there, play this game. If not, watch a speedrun. It is charming. It's adorable. Get to know it. So with that being said, I think it's time to set this one down and choose a new game for the week. So we're going to do that now.
Sounds good to me.
All right, Nakis, you ready to hear your games to choose from? Your 3 games to choose from.
Yeah.
All right, so here are your games. Final Fantasy Legend 3.
Okay.
Auto Upturn. And Advance Wars. Yeah, I've heard good things about that.
All right.
I'm not going to say anything.
I'm going to pick Advance Wars.
Okay. All right.
Because I am a huge Final Fantasy nerd. I have not ever played the Final Fantasy Legend series. We'll talk about that later. Definitely was the second contender in this. Was potentially the first, but then Advance Wars came up. So Advance Wars is always one. My friends always had that game and played it, and I always was so intrigued by it. But I never got to borrow it. I never owned it. We actually just got it in the store and sold it recently. It actually re-released on Nintendo Switch, Part 1 and 2. So I might play that version.
Okay.
But I've always wanted to get into it because it's a tactics-based game.
Yes. I've never played a single tactics game ever.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it, so it might be a little bit of a hurdle for me this week, but I have heard really good things. I've heard the people that love this game, really, really love this game. In fact, I could be wrong here. I believe Chaos Koopa is a huge fan of Advance Wars. This might be the first game he plays along with.
Hey, I would be so excited for him to do that.
So join us next week as we talk about Advance Wars and play along with us throughout the week. I would like to thank Kenji Yamazaki and RushJet1 for our intro and outro music. And I want to thank the listeners and you, Nakis, for being here with me to do this.
Aww.
And until next time, guys, this has been an episode of Nintendo Heads. I'm Tins.
I'm Nakis.
And we're out.
Peace.